Hi, I'm Michael Sullivan, the local Queens hot dog vendor. Come on outside and freeze to death and have a hot dog. You're watching Studio Q.
Hi, welcome to the second very cold show. Hey, get out of here. Welcome to the very second cold show of the 1993 school year.
Yes, I'm Kirsta Teague, and welcome to yet another interesting and informative episode of Studio Q. Stories on the Grand Hall clock, recycling in the ghetto.
Team's celebratory banquet this weekend. Someone decided to play a nasty joke on the Vanier Cup champions. Very early Thursday morning, around 3 a.m., someone broke into the Queens Phys Ed Center and stole the Vanier Cup. With more on that, here's Brenda Marshall.
The Vanier Cup has been a source of pride and honor for Queens ever since it arrived here a few short months ago, after the Gales' 31-0 triumph at the Sky Dome. Thursday morning, between 12 and 3 a.m., the Vanier Cup unexpectedly left Queens, stolen from this case where it has been on display in the Phys Ed Center. A note was left behind indicating that the cup would only be used for 48 hours and then returned, signed the Griswolds. Bob Howes, offensive coordinator for the Gales, offered this good-natured perspective on the events and the possible suspects.
One would hope that there's a scuff or two on the cup just to give it some history, though, you know. Maybe they'll find it in the bottom of the river or something.
And how does he think the Vanier Cup's Griswold vacation will affect the football team?
Well, we're all lifting weights a lot harder this morning.
Joining us now, hot on the trail of the Vanier Cup, is Brenda Marshall. Come on in, Brenda. And are the police involved in the investigation?
Well, Ron, VP Williams has reportedly said that no investigation will take place as long as the cup is returned within 48 hours. Right now, they're just treating it like a prank.
A prank. Good. Now we turn to look at an issue which is the root of a great deal of anger and controversy here on campus. Cedric Shubert, a professor here at Queens, has recently served a 1-month jail term after being convicted of sexually assaulting his stepdaughter. He has, however, received no censure from Queens administration, and as vandalism outside Jeffrey Hall reveals, many members of the Queens community are very upset. Steph Wilson has more.
The Queens Security Council held a rally on the steps of Richardson Hall Thursday afternoon. The council says they are a newly formed group of 30 to 40 Queens students concerned about the poor treatment of Cedric Schubert's case by the university administration.
We will defend ourselves.
During the rally, word came out that Professor Shubert has requested a leave of absence. The announcement that Professor Shubert has taken a leave of absence was not enough to satisfy those attending the rally today. They want him fired. After their outdoor rally, the protesters moved inside to directly make their demands known to Vice Principal Williams. Others camped outside his office to show their support of the Security Council.
No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace.
We are not willing to stand by and allow a convicted rapist to walk this campus.
Once they started investigating him, he should have been suspended until further notice, seeing is that he does pose a threat.
Backlash against Professor Cedric Shubert was obvious in this graffiti.
It was discovered on the walls of Jeffrey Hall on Monday morning. Many students may not have noticed these disturbing images because the spray paint was washed away quickly. Professor Shubert was recently convicted for sexually assaulting his stepdaughter 7 years ago, and he served a 1-month jail term for his crime this past December. Recently, the Journal published an editorial tying the Shubert case to that of William Ma. Ma was expelled from Queens and banned from campus last year because he sexually harassed some other students. Many feel that due to his crime, Professor Shubert should receive much the same treatment. Dick Bowman, head of public relations for Queens, said that the two cases are completely different. Ma's case involved other members of the Queens community, while Schubert's is a private matter and was dealt with by the Ontario judicial system. The Mathematics and Statistics Department had no comment regarding Professor Shubert. However, Bowman confirmed that the chair of the department has conducted an investigation into this matter. As well, Bowman emphasized that Schubert's classes were also pulled so that students could voice their concerns or transfer to other classes if they wished to. Irene Boujara also voiced her concerns about student welfare. As head of the Queen's Human Rights Office, she emphasized that students' comfort was a top priority. When asked to comment on the graffiti written on Jeffrey Hall, Boujara felt that it was a violent and cowardly way to voice opinions. However, she did also mention that a non-violent rally or protest could be a legitimate expression of views.
Thursday's protest was not violent, but the Security Council has said that it is prepared to take whatever steps necessary to ensure that Shubert is fired. Vice Principal Williams also made an announcement that Queen's is investigating whether or not Professor Shubert has assaulted or harassed any students on campus. This announcement, however, did not satisfy the Security Council. To quote Dick Bowman, the situation is still evolving. For Studio Q, I'm Stephanie Wilson reporting.
For the entire period of time that I've been at Queen's University, the Grant Hall clock tower has been reading the wrong time. However, the Engineering Society has decided to rectify the situation by installing a new mechanism. Crawford Smith has the details on this timely gift to Queen's.
For those of you who haven't already noticed, the unofficial symbol of Queen's is up and working. Thanks to the Engineering Society, the Grant Hall Tower clock is once again a beacon of guidance for students stranded on campus without a watch. In a celebration last Friday marking 100 years of applied science at Queen's, a new electronic clock was put into motion. The ceremony marked the culmination of a project which began last March with the selection of Heather Wright as chair of the NSOC Centennial Committee.
Originally it was done by Nathan Phillips Dupuis, finished in March of 1905. That was when it was actually turned on.
And the job wasn't cheap. The clock, supplied by Abernathy & Son in Toronto, cost the Engineering Society nearly $30,000. But don't worry about the money. According to Wright, through smokers and valuable donations by alumni, NSOC is right on pace with their fundraising. The ceremony itself was highlighted by a speech by Dean of Engineering, Carl Hamaker, who celebrated student initiative.
A number of people have proposed fixing the clock, but it was up to students to do the job.
NSOC President Greg Alexander and fourth-year engineering student Alicia Main also gave tribute to the students and faculty at Queen's, while Karina Kojin and Martin Ridlow entertained the crowd with a sketch comparing past to present. And finally, in good Queen's tradition, the actual switching on of the clock at precisely 9 o'clock was marked by bagpiper Andrew Siprick. As for the old hands and mechanism, they were handed over to Alumni Affairs, where they will be stored along with other of Mr. Dupuis' accomplishments. Well, Queen's is once again on time, and all students should feel proud of the work that the Engineering Society did. Because as Dean Hamaker himself said, these are the types of projects which reveal the character of students, faculty, and alumni alike. For Studio Q, I'm Crawford Smith, reporting.
A few days ago, I asked some students to tell me about their experiences in bars. Some responses seemed a bit suspicious. I don't go to bars.
Don't go to...
I've spent a lot of time in bars. I don't go to bars, so...
Oh, you don't? But on the whole, I learned a lot about Queens, about bars, and the students who frequent both of these institutions.
He puked all over a table, and then somebody else I was drunk with, and one of my buddies started picking out some chicken that he...
He'll reach over to a perfect stranger's cup and puke in it.
Saw someone actually at the Peel pub, I believe, after a Kill McGill game, hurling underneath the table.
Seen people throw up. That was pretty funny, eh, Dave? No? No.
Not funny. Went to burp, and she shot out all over the table and herself.
I don't usually remember what goes on in bars, really.
Terrific green fluorescent underwear that someone showed me. It was very nice, twice.
A guy pulled down his pants and started dancing around.
There's a couple of guys that started stripping down and changing clothes, but I got naked at a bar once.
I couldn't see it because it happened to me, but my friend says it's the funny thing he's seen. Help me out, people!
Well, stand up on the top of the table and say, I have an integral.
Was completely blasted after a few pitchers and fell backwards, and two bouncers were right there to catch me right under the arms, then tossed me out in the street.
Drink with their feet.
I remember a friend back in the Breezeway in Newfoundland sleeping under a table.
My friend Rich dumped a pitcher of beer over his own head.
Yeah, no, I didn't. No. Not true.
A guy doing flares, gymnastic flares on a table, drunk, until he falls off.
I was at Alfie's once, and the table was full of like 10 pitchers, and there was this guy who was sitting on the booth.
Oh, I saw a guy get a beer thrown in his face in Alfie's. A pitcher, half pitcher. Yeah.
He decided to jump on the table, and so we walked on the table, and the table spilled, table fell over, and all 10 pitchers spilled.
I managed to successfully talk myself out of getting the crap beaten out of me by a guy whose whole table full of beers and glasses I knocked over.
This is Lenore Macadam for Studio Q.
And, that was it. But that's not the funniest thing. I can't recall the funniest thing I've ever seen in a bar, but maybe, help you out.
Well, the funniest thing, I haven't seen it yet, but we're playing Alfie's on Tuesday night. I'm a band, and I think it'll be probably pretty funny.
The Winter Adaptive Games, an event organized by Queen's phys ed and rehab students for mentally and physically challenged children, was held last weekend. The games are an effort to give disabled children an opportunity to participate in games which are sometimes considered beyond their reach. Brenna Nyznik has more on this story.
A wet and dreary Saturday morning was not enough to dampen the high spirits of the kids and volunteers who took part in the 3rd annual Winter Adapted Games last week. This day-long event was organized for mentally and physically challenged kids in the Kingston area, and it was a day that helped to brighten the lives of all those involved.
The day was kicked off by the Queen's bands, who played for the enthusiastic group that assembled in the Louise D. Acton building early that morning. Volunteers from rehab and phys ed were paired up with children for the day, and both students and kids alike enjoyed great outdoor activities like tobogganing, sledge hockey, skating, ice sculpting, and snowshoeing. It was hard to resist the charm and energy of this special group of children who made fast friends with their student buddies and each other, as well as learning the challenge of new and different sports. Some even had a favorite activity.
And skating.
Skating.
Some found all of this just too tiring. The morning activities were topped off by lunch and even a visit from a clown. And the afternoon saw a scavenger hunt, which was open to everybody in the Kingston area.
It's also good because the kids get a normal play experience, and play is a really important thing for kids. And often, kids with disabilities don't get enough opportunity to just play and just be like normal kids.
But today, you didn't have to be a kid to have fun. For Studio Q, this is Brenna Nyznik reporting.
Last Friday, the 22nd, the AMS invited Sven Robinson to speak here at Queen's as part of the Human Rights Awareness Week. Robinson is an MP for the NDP party and the party's critic for the Ministry of Justice. He is also well known as an activist for human rights. Paul Beeston, president of the Toronto Blue Jays, spoke in Dunning Auditorium on Wednesday. The Queen's Marketing Association organized the event. Beeston spoke to students about the history of the team and the strategies used that resulted in the Jays' World Series win. Norman Araki brought his one-man show called I Don't Understand Women to Frosh on Monday night. His unorthodox performance focused on men and relationships as he played to a large audience in Leonard Cafeteria. The Shuffle Demons, one of Canada's most popular groups, played at Alfie's on Tuesday night. Their unique talent and fun lyrics entertain a packed audience. Two plays written by Queen's education student Jamie Moussa Kalim were performed last Sunday night in Jean Royce Hall Cafeteria. Both plays dealt with race-related issues, and the audience separated into groups after the show to discuss the problems of racism. Arts Fest, a celebration of student talent in the arts, was held all this week. The 10-to-1 Student Film Society set up displays with information on the Queen's Film Department and the film industry. The Ballet and Jazz Club made some great presentations to a large audience. The African and Caribbean Students Association also put together some interesting dances to reflect their unique ethnic and cultural background. Students also enjoyed a blues jam at Clark on Monday night. All these events and more made Arts Fest a great success, allowing everyone on campus to appreciate the incredible artistic talents Queen's students have.
The difficulties caused by the recent economic recession have helped focus the attention of the media to the plight of the poor. Queen's has also been forced to open its eyes to the presence of those whose daily problems reach well beyond the academic sphere. Jen Mondoux takes a look at the agencies on campus which are addressing the needs of hungry students.
Although certain times of the year are busier than others, the Partners in Mission Food Bank always runs a tight schedule. This year, however, they're seeing a lot of new faces. Although it may come as a surprise to many, Queen's students are making use of this service more than ever before. Yet the truth of the matter is that even here at Queen's, hunger is becoming a problem. Students in increasing numbers are finding that they can't afford food and are having to resort to the Partners in Mission Food Bank or other such services here on campus for help. The current estimate is that approximately 60 Queen's students make use of food services every month. But what happens to a Queen's student to put them in this situation? Often, as Tanya Beeler from Partners in Mission explains, the circumstances are out of the student's control.
But what we're finding this year is a lot of students didn't have summer jobs this year, or summer jobs didn't last as long, or they didn't pay as much.
In the past week and a half, various events were planned around campus to raise awareness about the problem. The main goal of this week was not only to raise money and canned goods, but also, as committee member Keith MacArthur explained, to make Queen's students realize that this campus is not immune to the problem of hunger.
Really, you can't narrow it down to any one group of students. It could be anyone. It could be your housemate. I mean, there's so many different reasons why people are affected by the problem.
There is some skepticism that this problem is on the rise. Most students have no personal contact with people in need and have trouble imagining that students who can afford tuition and books cannot afford the basic necessities of life. As Diane Nolting from Student Health explained, students who required food services have one thing in common.
We're talking about people who really don't have money. I think there's sort of a certain amount of skepticism, perhaps, that some of the people who are quote-unquote hungry have just spent all their money on beer. And I think that's not what we're talking about.
Nolting maintains that students are caught in an economic bind. She cites one particular instance where a second-year student from Toronto has been forced to resort to food services due to the recent layoff of both her parents. Nonetheless, Nolting maintains that dropping out would only make her situation worse.
If she leaves, you know, she has no job skills, so her prospect of getting a job is very poor. She's applied for OSAP, and she will probably get it because of the fact that both her parents are out of work and have been for some time.
Slowly but surely, the problem of Queen's students going hungry is being addressed. Support groups and various interests here on campus are working to promote awareness of a problem that comes as quite a surprise to many. For Studio Q, this is Jen Mondoux reporting.
Okay, Ron, I'm going to ask you a few questions pertaining to your general level of friendliness towards the environment.
Okay.
Okay, do you use a blue box?
Yes, every week, religiously.
Okay, good. Do you have a composter?
No.
You don't? Okay.
No. No, I'm sorry.
Do you use aerosol spray?
Never. Oh, no.
Is there anything else that your house does that is environmentally friendly that you want to share with me?
We write haiku poetry. It's very friendly.
Okay, well, apparently there's a troupe that's touring around the ghetto trying to make students a little more environmentally friendly. Nicholas Johnson has the story.
Look, you can see our breath.
To meet people, I live on the street, just on the street. I get to meet people, my neighbors, show my face, and tell them I'm interested in something.
As part of Environmental Awareness Week, ghetto tenants were hit by the Queen's Environmental Action Group. Pairs of volunteers canvassed door-to-door, handing out a 6-page leaflet with information on how to reduce waste, recipes for natural, homemade cleaning products, and tips on how to be more energy efficient in general. Kristen Lundell coordinates the Greening the Ghetto project.
We're encouraging people to refuse and reduce, as opposed to merely recycling.
It was pretty cold this week, so it was always nice to be invited into someone's house to give out free advice and free scouring powder. Packed in recycled bags, of course. The teams also occasionally performed an environmental audit, a questionnaire which evaluates how environmentally friendly you are. Not everybody scored very high, but a few people surprised the auditors with their initiative.
Or do you want our non-toxic cleaner that we've made? It's borax and baking soda.
Oh, I use, that's what I use.
Do you take your own bags or containers when you go shopping?
Sometimes.
Sometimes. Do you buy in bulk?
Yes, definitely.
It's nice to see that a few people care about what they buy and the way they use energy resources. But are we, the general public, making any real headway in terms of being aware of the consequences of our commercial choices? And if we are aware, do we show it in our actions? Are we taking shorter showers, hanging our clothes to dry, composting, and bringing our own bags to the supermarket? Just a few of the recommendations in the Ghetto Green Guide?
See, there's a difference between awareness and action. I think awareness, in many cases, there is a great deal of awareness. However, that is not being translated into action. And that's why we're doing the Greening the Ghetto campaign, because we feel that there's a lot more that people can be doing.
The Greening the Ghetto volunteers realize that it's not easy for us to change our lifestyles, and it certainly won't happen overnight. But we owe it to ourselves and our children to transform our concern into action. So let's turn down the heat when no one's home, and let's think a little longer about the products we buy. It's never too early to make changes like those. For Studio Q, I'm Nicholas Johnson.
OHIP's announcement that it will no longer absorb the full cost of medical certificates for students who are unable to write exams has prompted some examination of the need for such documentation. With more, here's Juliet Knapton.
Student health has resembled a soap opera on campus this year, experiencing financial difficulties, departure mid-year of Director Dr. McSherry, and facing an uncertain future. Now, the Ontario Government Medical Insurance, OHIP, is cutting costs and restricting the health problems it will cover. For example, outlined here, physical examinations for a trip abroad or for a job will now run you $75. Student health is picking up the tab for this semester, but at the expense of other areas. On top of an already overworked staff, special programs like eating disorder, sexual education, and stress clinics could feel the squeeze. OHIP used to cover the cost of a minor assessment with a doctor. Not now. Rector David Barr finds this charge of $26 for a medical certificate too much.
It adds up. Last year, just in the last semester from October 1st to December 14th, Student Health gave out 301 certificates. And at $26.10 each, that's, what, $7,500, maybe $8,000. So it adds up pretty quickly. And I don't think, personally, that students should have to pay money to prove that they're honest. Like, if you take the, students should be taken at their word, and if the university doesn't believe them, the university should be paying money to prove students' honesty.
Barr suggests that individual departments cover the cost for their own certificates. The interim head of student health, Dr. Stephen McNevin, explains that issuing medical certificates is not a medical act and can't be billed to OHIP.
It seems absurd for us, and it undermines, I think, our credibility to try and certify an illness when someone isn't ill in front of us. I mean, their history said they're ill, so we said, well, with about the same amount of clinical judgment that a prof would need. Well, it sounds like you were sick last week. It probably made it hard to get your assignment in on time. And it seems like it can plug up our system sometimes.
Despite the uncertainty, Dr. McNevin believes that student health will pull through for another year.
We want to help, and yet at the same time, there's got to be a better, more humane, more realistic way.
In a time of fiscal restraint, spending $15,000 a year to say that students get sick appears ludicrous. Now, more than ever, we need that money to support the student health services. For Studio Q, I'm Juliet Knapton reporting.
In sports, it was a hat-trick weekend for the women's hockey team. Three games on tap. They lost the first two to Guelph by scores of 5-1 and 2-0. but managed to tie an exhibition game against Saint Laurent 2-all. The men's team also lost, this time to the Université de Québec at Trois-Rivières. The score, 5-2. In the pool, Queens had a strong performance at the swim team's annual invitational meet. They swam against teams from the University of Ottawa, Ryerson, and Trent. The meet wasn't scored, which meant the teams took advantage of the friendly competition to see how they were progressing in their training programs. The teams will compete again, this time for real, at the OUAA and OWIAA finals next month. And the Queens fencing team held a tournament this past weekend. They faced teams from the University of Ottawa, Carleton, and RMC. Queens women fencers had a strong showing, winning the épée and the team foil competitions. Queens men's team won the team sabre. The team travels to York this weekend for another tournament, and then to the league championships in 2 weeks.
Roland Samuels III is a fourth-year commerce student. His parents have just bought him a house with 7 empty rooms. He needs to find housemates. He has no friends. It's midterm and 6 very desperate students need to find a place to live. They say you really never know a person until you live with them. This is Union Station, coming in March to Cablenet.
All right, well, that does it for another show. Just coming up next week is International Development Week, whose theme this year is fair trade, things going on campus, Kingston Global Community Center, speakers, coffee house Wednesday night, loads of stuff.
It's run by Am Scody.
Am Scody.
3 more weeks till reading week. Woo!
Are you going anywhere?
No, are you?
I actually am. I'm going to lovely Kingston so I can get more of this fine winter weather.
Great. Anyway, I hope everyone else is going to have a good reading week.
And we'll see you next week. I'm Ron Tite.
I'm Kirsta Teague. Have a good one.
Studio Q, Queen's weekly television show, is brought to you courtesy of CableNet 13 and the Queen's Alma Mater Society. Tune in each week, Thursdays at 6 and Fridays at 4:30 on CableNet 13.